morning to everybody. So here we are in the podcast titled The Feasibility of Implementation of Digital Product Design. So we have Mr. Jon Deragon from FPT Software, and he is going to share his experience on the implementation and feasibility related matters of UX and UI projects in the industry. Well, so let us just start with a few fundamentals of UX and interaction design. So those who don't know what is UX and UI is, how interaction designer works at the industry. So shall we, Jon?
Nice to be here with you.
Thank you. So my first question to you, what is the UX and interaction design as per your knowledge and experience, what it is actually?
Sure. I think when you take out your phone and you use digital apps and you find some of them maybe difficult to use, right, while others it's just so fluent, it's so intuitive and natural to use it, and you enjoy using it, you want to use it, there's a big difference, right? And I think UX and interactive design, these are like methods and an approach and a frame of mind and how you look at designing that product in such a way that you are better attuned to the end user, the person that's actually going to use it, and what their needs are and what their kind of their contexts, the things that they want to accomplish with this app, and just their general preferences about what a good app is for them. And so UX is really about all of these kind of methods and a process that these methods sit on to uncover all of the information that you need to make very sort of confident and informed design decisions. And the outcome is that it's more usable, it's a more friendly experience, or just generally an intuitive one that lets you get to the tasks and accomplish them in a much more efficient, better manner than what would be the alternative, which is kind of a assumption-based design, where you believe you understand the market or the end user, and you make those design decisions abstract from doing the actual research with those people. So that's probably the first part of it. Maybe the second part of it is you may do all of this research and understanding about the users and really questioning them and doing surveys and doing research and so forth. But the other is, when you've started to design it, is to usability test it. This is a very important part to the whole picture of UX, is designing and then testing that with real-world users to see what is the response to this.
Very true.
And does it actually resonate with them well? Does it actually have the usability that we thought would be the case when we designed it, and fine-tuning it based on that? So,
yeah, it's the same feeling here. As an expert of interaction design, practicing in academia and also conducting various consultancy projects for industry. It's the same feeling. I think I support what you have actually said. So let's connect another dot, maybe the double diamond UX design process. So starting from discovery to the delivery.
yes.
So if you could highlight few points, important points, and highlight the importance of user research.
Sure. The double diamond has actually become quite a popular way of looking at approaching design. There are these kind of two diamonds that run side by side, and really what you're doing is you're having a problem and you're exploring all the ways all the ways that this problem exists, and then you're trying to diverge into a set of potential solutions for that problem. And then the other diamond is really around kind of creating some sort of a prototype or manifesting the ideas that come from this process into something that is potentially a takeaway. You can actually use it to solve this problem. And this has actually become quite a common approach to looking at solving challenges in digital design, for sure, absolutely.
That's great. Can you please highlight the kind of projects you pursue at your end in FTP Software's Vietnam? If you could touch upon few projects and the problem areas, basically, what kind of problem do you really solve there at your?
I think the beauty of working with IT services or agencies is just the kind of breadth of all the different industries and companies and countries that you have the privilege to work with every day. I mean, there are definite benefits in working in an in-house team where you're really focused and kind of fixate on this one product and really crafting it and refining it and perfecting it. But I gotta say, I love the IT services because you have just so many different products and different form factors and things. So probably some of the main industries that we work with on a day-to-day basis is around, I think financials is a big one.
Fintech? You mean fintech?
Yeah, fintech, but a lot of it just comes down to traditional large banks. And I think what we see is that there's a huge movement right now, particularly across Southeast Asia, where they're modernizing these apps that are kind of maybe first or second generation apps, getting kind of tired, may not leverage a lot of the new features and functionalities. And I think that they're responding to new demands in the market around what a typical retail banking consumer expects from that experience. And that past generation apps that might have been built 5, 6, 7 years ago, doesn't speak to that.
Sure.
And I think what a lot of the banks are trying to do at this point is kind of soften that retail banking experience. It's not so rigid and sort of institutional. I think they want to carefully balance kind of having the safety and security and the trust that they've had while also becoming approachable.
Sure.
And in addition to that, there's new technologies that have come into place. For example, if you set up with a bank now, that's not KYC at the bank, that's eKYC. Sure. So there's a whole change in the onboarding experience that needs to happen. And this is very difficult to just bolt on to existing apps. So this is really things that encourage them to say, look, let's re-look at this whole digital experience. What we also see is a greater dependence on self-service. And this is not just banks, this is many industries where the dependence on oneself to support through different technical issues or service issues. How does the app better facilitate this? And again, it's challenging in the old app models to really do that properly. It really just has this bolt-on FAQ kind of effect and stick a chatbot in there. And it just doesn't work. This requires a rethinking from the ground up. So when you put all of these together, we've done a number of sort of the large national banks in Vietnam and some of the global banks and some of the banks from different regions in the area. And these are all the compound issues that have come together where the banks have realized, hey, we need to reset and start again. And there's always interesting design challenges around that as you go through that full UX process of uncovering. We're not just redesigning it and making it look better. We're looking at the fundamentals of how this app behaves. What is the app's relationship with those customers? How do we make it more usable? And importantly is, as those banks start to branch out into territory where they might not be familiar with using mobile banks to do transfers of funds and important financial transactions, how do we bring them in the best way? So what is the onboarding experience? What is the, when you look at the UX writing, how is all the labels and the headers and the instructions, how are they written in such a way that it's consistent, the terminology is clear, and for someone that's unfamiliar with doing things online, that it makes that a comfortable experience that they can trust, that the money's going to get to where they want it to go, right?
True. Yeah. Very true. So what is the typical approach that you take to resolve such industry projects? If you could put some light on that.
So the UX approach that we follow is we really start off with a discovery phase. It's very easy for everyone to rally around, hey, we need a new app, we need it to be refreshed, here are the requirements and functions, go ahead and build the design. But actually, when you start to do a proper discovery process where you're understanding what is this we're building? And is everyone in consensus in that vision? What's its purpose? Where does it fit in the competitive landscape of all the other apps that are comparable to it? And I think from a design team's perspective, clearly defining what are the success measures? How will we actually know whether this is a success or not?
Very well said. Yep.
And that gives the design team a guiding light to point towards when we're making design decisions, that we can say, hey, we're heading towards this particular goal or set of goals, and the business can come along as well and measure based on that.
Yeah. So do you feel, design can create more values and more business to any firm?
I believe so. I absolutely believe so. And it's been proven time and time again. When you look at all of the sort of top sort of SaaS and other service offerings that are online, there's a clear distinction in the business performance and the quality of the user experience that the end consumer uses on a day-to-day basis with that product. Absolutely, the correlation is there. I think there's a growing appetite for consumers to, well, I think first there's a higher level of maturity in what they expect from the product. I think they appreciate products that are more consistently designed, more thoughtful in how they're laid out. I think they have a greater appreciation for navigation, the navigability of the product, and finding the things that they need to find. While there are many apps that are starting to look at, let's simplify, let's take out all of the debt and just boil down to the simple, the most basics. And Apple's famous for this, because when you open up a control panel or any number of things, they've really distilled it down to the essentials. But there's also a lot of very complex products, right? And so the navigability and being able to find features and to be able to use them has become incredibly important, just because of the sheer nature of so many features and so many fine-tuning things. If you look at any of the sort of digital video editing software, you go, then you know exactly what I mean, right?
Correct. Yeah. So let me just highlight one important mission of Government of India here in the context of increasing GDP and improving the economics of our country. That is Make in India mission. Okay, so where Indian government is planning to create more products crafted in India and create for Indian people and usage for Indian people. So what do you think, what are the scopes of UX design and interaction design to make this thing happen? Make this mission successful?
That's an interesting question. So I think what I'm hearing from you is that there's a larger initiative happening to have homebrew startups, a larger ecosystem where products are being developed and put out into the Indian market. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly the same.
Yeah, and I think what I always find, and I think I'll go back to when I used to live in Jakarta. I was a VP product for a startup incubator, and what was interesting about it is that we brought in all the best talent that we possibly could, and what we tried to do is solve unique Jakarta problems and issues and things that existed in the city that were challenges through mobile technology. And so through that, you really got a sense of the uniqueness of the challenges for a particular geography. The things that face those people, maybe the infrastructure that is positive or lacking, the day-to-day lives, the languages, the culture, the religion, all of these things start to factor in to what's appropriate to build and deploy and consider a business that has traction in that particular market. So in the sense of India, my understanding is that there's so many sort of diverse pockets of different cultures and different kind of ways of life within this. This is where UX really excels, because you can really get down at the street level and do that research and that localization so that it speaks to that group of people much more clearly and succinctly than just doing a broader, let's just launch an app out and see what happens. You can really start to zero in. And when you look at the development of technologies around personalization right now, and being able to adapt the experience depending on who's logging in, where are they logging in from, what are they trying to do, it's a very good time to have that kind of initiative.
Very well said, actually. So I have one linking question to this fact. So do you also think that usability testing really works in such scenario to launch the new product in the market? I mean, starting from gathering the requirements from the market, as well as before launch, if we go for testing kind of thing, does it really have an impact in the market?
Undoubtedly, particularly in the scenario that we just talked about. Firstly, what we're trying to do is build apps for potentially markets that this is a new technology to.
Mm-hmm.
And so for them to be coming in and using it fresh, and for you to go through a variety of scenarios and see how they respond to them, whether the comprehension and understanding is there, whether the efficiency is there, how do they feel about the experience? Would they want to do this? Just because they can do it doesn't mean they want to do it. So there's that. But when you actually get it out into the market, that's the critical time to start doing the testing with actual customers, actual users, and on a regular basis. Because as it starts to seep out into the populace and people are using it in that, that's not when research stops. There's a continuous UX research that keeps on going after that, looking at the qualitative data, looking at the quantitative data. The numbers that you're getting in on all the analytics to say how many people are using it, what are they doing, where are they going, that's great. That's the, what's happening. But the usability testing is why it's happening. And that is essential. Otherwise, it's just a lot of what's happening, and that's not enough. It's just a small percentage of what you need to know to be able to then go in and refine the product and adjust it so that it does perform better, so that users do complete tasks better and like it better as a product, that want to use it more.
True, very true. I completely agree with you. So since you have mentioned about the data, so it is the era of the data analytics and generative AI, generative design. So what do you think the generative AI works well in the field of design, and is it helping designers, or it's taking away from design field, or jobs from the design field? What do you think?
Okay. This is a very multifaceted topic, and I think we can have this conversation today, and I think a month from now maybe have a different conversation. And I think that's how quickly it's evolving, and that's how many factors are kind of going into it. And the rate of the change of the technology I'm seeing, I'd done a road show where I'd gone to the various campuses of our company to talk about how to effectively use generative AI to create images and essentially replace stock photography, because I felt it was a much more compelling way of approaching imagery in our marketing, in our presentations, and in our end deliverables. But it had to be done in such a way that the prompts had a clear workflow, that there was a thorough understanding of how to, almost like the grammar of how the AI bot wants to be spoken with, so that it best understood the highest level of comprehension, right? So, but as I did that, what I realized, it was maybe a month apart between each of those visits. I'd have to be updating that presentation each time, because it's evolving that fast. Particularly around the text to video and so forth. Huge leaps were being made each time I would go and do this presentation. And that just goes to show you that this conversation will be different every month, and just slightly evolving, and the perspective that we have will change. Going back to your original question, I think we have to frame this carefully, in that there is a immediate short term, a mid-term, and a long term, because we're starting to ask questions around, is my job safe?
Yeah, exactly.
In the very near term, as a UX practitioner, I think it's okay. We're all right. And the reason for that is because a lot of what we do is around the soft skills of working with people and getting clarity on issues and taking in requirements and figuring out how do we translate these into the product design, right? The AI hasn't quite done that yet, so we're okay in that sense. If you're an illustrator or a graphic designer, I'd say it's quite different.
True.
And agencies or companies that may have had many teams of large squads of these kinds of design professionals, that may change. That's the sad truth. So in that sense. But when I look at how we use it and how it's affected our job, what I'd see just for my team personally, and I think every team will be approaching this differently. We're seeing the generative AI and using that as output more for images and illustrations and things like that, and for
Content specifically.
Content, exactly. What we're also seeing is, our team is huge on Figma. We it's almost exclusively, and this is for companies around the world in every industry. It's just Figma. They've pretty much just taken over. And so we have to look very closely at what innovations are they doing in this work tool. And I thought some of the stuff that was released recently was very good and very appropriate use of the technology. And I point specifically to, if we have hundreds and hundreds of layers and objects, the AI will take the sort of the grunt work from that and replace all of them with the most appropriate text labels. Sure. Perfect. I don't want designers spending time manually trying to figure out this and creating conventions and having to maintain this. That's what AI should be doing. Number two is, when we're doing prototypes, we're in the interactive design phase, we have prototypes. Again, I don't think we should be spending our time looking for stock images and stuff on Google Images to just have place marker photos and avatars and things like that. It just does that instantly.
True.
Absolutely perfect use. Yeah. Where we see that we haven't evolved into yet is actual layout design. And the reason we're holding off on that is because I believe the technology is not matured enough to the point where we feel comfortable with using it for this purpose. But I think also that when a company has come to an agency or an IT services to say we want an app built for us, they're expecting something bespoke. Sure. They're expecting a process where we are using our human ingenuity to come up with these designs based on a very descriptive set of documents, discussions, and internal debates, and ideating, and workshops, and turning that into a design. Not to just put in some prompts into an AI and pick the best that's been spat out. It's just simply not there yet. Will this evolve? Yes. When? I'm not sure. But at some point, maybe in the mid to long term, this relationship that I've just described will absolutely change. And we have to be ready for this. So what I see as the midterm is that it will have a much greater capacity to create these designs and be much more integral into the design process. The scary part is the long term. And where I see that potentially playing out, and again, this is my own personal opinion and maybe not shared by others, or maybe this is something that we're all grappling with and each of us will become comfortable with our position on it at some point. I see that largely designers are taken out of the equation, and what happens is companies, say for example, you're starting an e-commerce website and you're selling shoes, maybe Nike wants to make a new app, for example. You're basically putting all of the assets into it, all of the brand guidelines, the style guides, and all of this, and you flick the switch. And really what happens is as you promote users coming into this, maybe it's a mobile app, maybe it's changed by then, based on what we've just saw this week for AR developments. As people are going in, it's automatically, in how AI does it, observing everything that everyone does, and it's forming these layouts on a per person basis. And as it starts to understand you better, it so exquisitely targets the layouts, the wording, The shoe may be in a completely different background or on different models, depending on what resonates with you as an individual, and is rendering all of this on the fly.
True.
So then we have to really start to question, what is our position in this?
Correct.
And really then your design has basically become people that inform this at the beginning of this process, and then maintain oversight to make sure that it's sort of staying on track. But that's a very different look at, you know, how do designers fit into commerce and digital products than it is right now. Radically different. So I think the important thing that if people are going through university at the moment to think about is that midterm. Because that midterm will come very quick, is that the AI will be able to generate a lot of this, and we're simply getting it to produce it and massaging it and getting it out the door. Where I think UX plays an important role in this is, again, the facilitation between the organization and bringing these things to life. And so, and a lot of this will also be that the designers need to be very highly skilled in creating unique experiences. So if there's people that are going to be involved, they must create something that is bespoke, is unique, is innovative. And this is where the drop-off in terms of employment starts to happen. Because if you're a mediocre designer that hasn't put the effort into creating novel designs, you're in trouble. Because that's what the AI will be able to do. And you'll simply just be replaced or unemployable. So I implore all of the UX designers and UI designers, if you're in this, you have to be fully in it. And you really need to be fully abreast of all the design principles and ways to innovate and the ways to level up design beyond what you see in Behance and beyond kind of just scouring the web for other people's stuff, coming up with your own unique innovations. And that will keep you on top. That will keep you employable beyond what AI is doing, which is simply scouring the web, looking for everything and consuming it and giving you variations of that.
As you mentioned that AI gives you the data-based personalized contents, right? So I think that is another drawback of AI. They are not looking at the mass. I mean, target audience may be a mass of people. What they are not addressing, rather AI is generating content just based on the designer's persona. So that could be one of the drawback from AI side. I think after listening to you, I was just thinking in my mind that is one drawback. But I do agree that there are chances of change in role of GUI designers, because they really need to think what novel interactions are there in the UI part, rather than those asset generations and content generations for UI design.
Well, I think for the UI designers, and this has come on for quite a while, is that as a UI designer, having some UX understanding goes a long way. I think your value as a UI designer, if the sort of the fundamentals of UX are in place, and completely you're free to practice UI, but just to have that underlying appreciation for the usability of what you're creating and to connect in with the UX designers in such a way that you understand it, you understand the flow, you understand some of the activities, has tremendous value.
And I think both UI and UX designers should collaborate and work together rather than work in silos.
Absolutely.
And we really can't differentiate UI and UX on the fine line. Both are related matters. What do you think?
Well, I'd say if I look at the team that we have, I would classify a majority of them as being sort of a UX UI designer. And some may or may not disagree with that kind of title, but I will say that they're UX practitioners and they do some really good design work. And would have originally have come through that career path. Maybe started with graphic design, moved to UI, have an eye for design, but understood that ultimately their career path was going to be UX.
Yes.
And so they don't lose that capability because they've shifted into UX.
Okay.
And we've seen this career path again and again. We've seen UX designers come from all kinds of different facets, industrial designers, architects,
Yes.
psychologists,
Yes.
which is great. And we want that diversity of backgrounds to come in because it makes their contribution into the UX so interesting.
True.
Right? Those vantage points from their past is very powerful.
So it's kind of a amalgamation of knowledge from different discipline and application of it for catering to design and in greater sense problem solving. So my last questions to you. So we are almost at the end of this conversation. So how is your experience here at Alliance School of Design and Alliance University so far?
So what was amazing is as I come off the street and we're turning the corner and we just drive into this oasis. It was just like amazing. Just this kind of tropical paradise, and it's just this beautiful facility. I'm very impressed. I'm keen for you to take me for a further tour through all of the buildings and
Definitely we'll have a tour. I'll take you to different center of excellence and definitely our HCID lab that we have here with high quality equipments and the faculty members, obviously.
Yes, and I think that was probably the other thing that's stood out from my visit is just the approachableness and kindness of everyone that has greeted me so far.
It's our pleasure to host you and to have you in our campus, and looking forward for greater relationship, long-term relationship with you. And thank you very much. So thank you to all of you for listening to us, and I hope you enjoyed the session, and hereby we are closing this session. Thanks once again. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.